Assalamu alaikum, I'm Abdul Haseeb, and today what brings me to your proposition is the talent code. Everything that we do, everything that we feel, everything that we think, what is it? It's only a result. A result of what? Electric impulses. Now, those electric impulses, they're traveling through the nerve fibers right inside your body. And those connected fibers, what do we call them? We call them circuits. We're not going into electrical engineering over here, but it is dealing with your body. It is dealing with you. Now, everything that you do as you move a part of your body, even as you think, or you intend to do something, to even lift your hand up, the nerve impulse, a signal, is reached through the circuits to the fibers. It's reached there. Now, to be biologically explaining it to you, there's a system, there's a coordination and response, a basic theory of coordination and response. Even though if you have heard a little about it, there are only 3 neurons that deal with it. The first one is the sensory neuron, which detects any change, any stimulus that has happened, anything that is away from the normal. Then we move on to the relay neuron. This is the intermediate neuron, and this is the most important because it contains your brain, it contains your spinal cord, and these are the organs that set in sequence, some events that take that away from normal back to normal. And who's the one who takes things into action? That's the third neuron, that's your motor neuron. That's the effector muscle. All that electrical impulse, it travels through the nerve fibers, through the circuits, all the way to your muscles. All the way there. Now, as it travels, there is a substance which helps it travel more than the speed that it actually has. And what do we call it? We call it myelin. Now, myelin is a jelly-like substance that basically insulates the nerve fibers. But its most important point of view, the most important use, it shows that how quickly, how precisely an action takes place. It determines that how quickly one action would take place and how accurately it would happen. At the very certain time, at the very certain place. When would it happen? It has to happen now, within a second, or within a matter of milliseconds. Although we are all into this myelin stuff, but did we know that this functionality, all this system, it's important to develop skills? It's totally important to develop new skills. And now that we know that more your myelin, the more the substance of myelin that you have, the more accurate, the more precise action you take place, the more control you have over your thoughts, over your feelings, over your actions. And where do we buy this myelin from? This is the question now. All we need is now more and more of myelin, because we want control. Either it's the other people or either it's yourself. We want control everywhere. So it's not a big deal, although we know that it's really needed to develop the new skills. Where do we buy it? We buy this from us. It's very easy, from our very own actions. And it's not the matter of purchasing and selling, it's the matter of growing. It's the matter of developing, it's the matter of going from one level to the other. That is the matter over here. And trust me on this one, to be very honest, you can significantly grow your myelin substance by making mistakes. By making mistakes, when you do an action, there's always a thing that practice makes perfect. Why? The question is why. Although this is a very good statement, a very good phrase, to ignite the motivation in you. It's very good that practice makes perfect, so do it. But why? Although I did tell you that your nerve impulse, right? Your nerve impulse, it is fired from the circuits. And this myelin, it takes less than even the milliseconds to take it to the action place. Although I did tell you this, but why is practice needed over here? When you are doing something consistently at the same pace, at the same time, at the same place, with the same pace. The point over here is with the same pace, with the same difficulty level. That mild circuit has been already well established and there won't be any significant growth further. If you keep on working on something consistently with only a very common approach, something which has gone too worn out, too old, there won't be anything that would stimulate any significant growth to your substance. And that means less control. That means less control. The point over here is that you need to do something new. Something you're totally unfamiliar with. Now, for example, just try a new song. If you try a new song and try to sing a new song, there could be any task. But for example, that you try to sing an unfamiliar song, right? Then you're building the new circuits. Then you're getting the more mild substance. Then your nerve impulses are traveling, not in time, but in other dimensions even. It's uncountable. Then you're doing something. Then you have the control over your actions, over your thoughts, over what you feel. Because you have myelin, there is a significant growth in that. But there is always the thing that, again, practice makes perfect, so there needs to be a deeper practice. And we right now have a combat, a challenge between deep practice versus nature and nurture. They aren't related. They're totally different. For instance, when you hear the names of the most famous artists like Da Vinci, right? When you hear their names, what do you attribute to their skills? Where did their skills come from? Their genes? Their talent? Or do you attribute it from the environment that they were brought up in? Where do you attribute it from? That's the question here. When we have to look at the most famous talents, we need to also look at how these famous talents often appear in history. Da Vinci is history, but his works are still here, are still being so intrigued from. His works are still here. Although he's a history, but we also have to look at the history. And the first thing that we notice is that talent, this skill, this myelin substance in people comes from what? It comes at a certain place, it comes at a certain time, but it comes in large clusters. That's what it comes in. Moving further, does the nature and nurture explain this phenomena? Does it? Because the common nurture, like, peace, freedom, prosperity, they weren't particularly present in the history. Were they? There were always riots, there were always rebellions, people were at war. There were civil rebel and everything. All kinds of riots. All kinds of war. There was. So what do you attribute it to still? Now, because if it had to be the genetic factors, then it's probably unlikely to say that it would be a gap of 2 generations to say that it was a genetic factor. Because this talent would hardly really come in 2 generations. 2 generations is a long time. And that's the genetic factors, what genetic factors say. So that's a no to them. That's a no to them. So what's left? What's left to explain this phenomena now? Deep practice, nature, genes, talent, or the environment? The environment. Because as we know that, for example, Da Vinci, he was born at the time of the Renaissance, the early and the late Renaissance, right? So at that time, what happened that people took the young boys at their young age to do some craft. It was their ritual. They took them to do some craft, and they did a vocation for a period of time, under the supervision of a master. Now, to say that his masterpieces that we still, witness, like the Mona Lisa, we still witness it. And I'm telling you for sure, it's not anything about the inborn genius of him. It's about the decades of the myelin substance thickening. When the myelin substance thickened, that's the art he displayed in front of us. That's when he got control over his thoughts, over his emotions, over the brush he used. That's the point. And now, there is even more of a rush to do this deep practice. So when I say deep practice, what do I mean? I do mean that there needs to be very long periods of time that you require to consistently repeat that thing. And then you can achieve it. This is totally the point. But when you have to achieve something big and even looking at it seems so difficult, why don't you break it down? Why do not just put it in smaller sizes, and then when you're done with these smaller sizes, just chunk it up into a big one? Because when you chunk down the big tasks, into smaller ones, what happens? There will be only one of two things, and there could be two at the one. Now, on one hand, what happens is that you get the satisfaction, the inner satisfaction that one goal is achieving at a time, one by one. On the very other hand, you also get this deeper understanding of what's crucial, what are the crucial points, what are the crucial components. You get the understanding of these because you go deep. The thing is that we have to keep the bar higher. There is the thing that we have to repeat, but repeating the same thing is just keeping the exercise of the well-established circuit. There is no new significant growth in your myelin substance. If you have to keep your bar up, which by studies have been proven that a non-stop of 10 hours at least could give you, but who could do that these days? Obviously, you have to repeat every next day. And when you repeat, you have to go to another level. Because when the bar reaches the top, the bar actually pushes itself up and your potential has gone down. That means you have to fill the bar to that level. Fill the bar to that level. Then there's another push. The basic thing over here is that you have to go beyond your limits. The smaller the size of the bar, the smaller is your myelin substance. The smaller is your control. The smaller is your art. The smaller is everything. Everything. So, let's take an example of deep practice. For instance, if we look at futsal. Football, it's just similar to it. Nothing different. They're soccer players. But that's their deep practice. How? It's just a regular ball, only half of the size